G'day YouTube, NecroarcanistXIII here, and today I'm going to talk about and theorise about The Binding of Isaac. If you do not know, it is an indie roguelike game with quite the cult following. If you've never heard of the game before, then I would suggest you go play it yourself, or more simply, there are many channels on YouTube that play the game almost exclusively, and I will provide links to them down in the description below. These spoiler-filled theories are designed only for those who have played through or have watched Let's Plays of the entire game. Now, I actually got the idea for this video from MatPat's theory on the Game Theorists channel, which talks about the story and the potential for some of the characters. I would also suggest that you watch that before watching this. But that theory, having been out for quite a while, only covers the content in the remake of the original game, known as The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. The theories I will include in this video will cover content from the two expansions, Afterbirth and Afterbirth Plus, which expand the story of the game by adding new characters, extra endings, and a true final boss. Now, shall we begin? To begin with, I will cover the playable characters and summarise their roles in the game, as well as speculate their ties to the overall plot. But remember, there are spoiler alerts all over the goddamn place, so let's begin with Isaac, the main character of the game. Isaac himself is a reference to the biblical story called The Binding of Isaac. In it, Abraham is commanded by God to sacrifice his only son, Isaac, to prove his loyalty to God. Just as Isaac's mother in the game, quote, "Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I shall show you." Genesis 22-2. The game itself is supposedly based on the childhood of the game's creator, Edmund McMillan, for he grew up in a religious household and things were not always happy. He often makes official statements about the game and aspects of it when fans question him on his blogs. Although apparently I haven't been able to access any of these blogs recently because just trying to load the pages doesn't work. But one thing that was on the Wikia for Binding of Isaac Rebirth, Edmund has stated that Isaac is officially left-handed, but in the cutscenes of the game, Isaac is shown to be holding a pencil with his right hand, and this references the Catholic bias against left-handedness, stemming from passage Matthew 25:33, proclaiming that God will put those deserving to ascend to heaven on his right hand side and those deserving to descend to hell on his left. It could be that Isaac's abusive, religiously fanatical mother was forcing him to learn things the right way, in fear of him turning left and becoming evil, which still happens in religious families to this day. Next we have Magdalene, the second character from the original Binding of Isaac, unlocked after having 7 heart containers at any time. She begins with Yum Heart, which generates a single heart of health on use, as well as the highest health of any character. She is based on Mary Magdalene, a follower of Jesus Christ, who supposedly had 7 demons exorcised from her body, referenced by the 7 hearts required to unlock her. She has been canonized as a saint in several Christian branches and was believed to be a prostitute before converting to Jesus' side, although this has no textual basis in the Bible and is considered by scholars to be a myth. Anyway, in the game, 2 of the nightmare sequences, which occur between floors, involve Isaac receiving a wig and a dress, of which he is proud to have before other kids begin making fun of him. There are theories that it may be possible that Isaac, despite being only a child, may actually be a closet transvestite who identifies as a girl rather than a boy. Given that, in the opening cutscene of the game, Isaac's mother is told by the supposed voice of God that Isaac is unclean and needs to be punished, and this may be a metaphor for Isaac's mother being a devout religious person, being confused and or outraged by her son's behaviour and tries to correct him by taking away all of his belongings, including the Magdalene wig and dress, as well as shaving his head, which has actually been officially stated again by Ed McMillan. Now, Isaac is bald in-game because he was shaved by his mother. And in early years, and even in some places to this day, people like gays and transvestites and the like, they've been hunted down by religious groups and imprisoned in special camps designed to train them out of their behaviours, effectively forcing them to believe that things like homosexuality and cross-dressing are so-called evil activities. And as I said for the left-handed thing, it still happens in real life today, just not as commonly, but before the late 20th century, like the 1970s, 80s and 90s, it was commonplace for pray the gay away camps to kidnap people and force them against their will, and convert to ways that were most socially acceptable at the time. Despite this, though, I personally have a different theory about Magdalene's backstory in the Binding of Isaac. I think she may have actually been Isaac's sister. Maggie's unlocks include several forms of holy icons and objects, as well as the guardian angel familiar. And one theory I have is that Magdalene may have actually died in a freak accident, but Isaac took the blame. His parents believing that he was responsible, and that began the downward spiral that tore the family apart. There would be little to no evidence through the various photographs or Isaac's drawings in the game's cutscenes, because potentially they would have been locked away to stop them from reminding the family of their loss, but there would still be a few traces around. For example, Maggie's bow, an unlockable item, may be sitting around, maybe it's sitting in Isaac's room, and he puts it in the wig that he gets. The flower that represents the purity item, I think it's like a white lily or something. It may have been Maggie's favourite type of flower when she was still alive, and those would also be around the house. Either way, in the end, Isaac took to dressing as Maggie as a coping mechanism, and the guardian angel item, another unlock, may either represent Isaac looking after what little remains of Magdalene, or that he may believe she is watching over him in heaven, hence why her unlockable items are regarded as holy in nature. And that's all I have to say about Maggie, and I won't take as long with every other character as I did her. It's just that I was able to theorise more about what her connection to Isaac may be as a character. Anyway, bronze medal, third place, we have Cain, another member of the original Binding of Isaac cast. Cain is unlocked when the player possesses 55 or more coins in a single run. Cain begins with lucky foot, paperclip and one key. Cain is a reference to the story of Cain and Abel, in which Cain commits the first murder by killing his brother Abel, simply because God favoured Abel's sacrifices over Cain's. This is why Abel is an unlockable item, and according to the Bible, after Cain murdered Abel, God gave Cain a specific mark that would allow everybody in the world to know the sin he had committed. This may be why Cain is missing his left eye. Either it was removed by God, or the mark is actually on the eye itself, which would be all the more reason for Cain to wear an eye patch. If my speculation about Magdalene's backstory is, or if it holds any sort of ground, then that may have been what happened to Isaac after Maggie died. Because she may have died in an accident that was his own doing. He would have been punished either by himself out of guilt or by his parents out of anger. They may have poked his eye out by the paperclip in Cain's possession. And despite Isaac being shown to have 2 fully functional eyes in all of the cutscenes, one of Cain's unlocks is the glass baby, which is a floating eyeball, referencing that Cain, or more specifically Isaac, has a glass eye, and the character of Cain wears an eye patch to keep it from falling out. Next we have Judas, another character from the vanilla Isaac as it's known. Judas is unlocked after defeating Satan for the first time. Begins with the Book of Belial, giving him a damage boost when used, as well as free coins. Judas's name refers to Judas Iscariot, 13th disciple of Jesus Christ, who betrayed the Son of God to the Romans in exchange for 30 pieces of silver, which is represented by 3 coins. Moreover, the 3 coins are speculated to represent the 3 Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In many ways, this can represent Isaac's character, either the feelings of being betrayed by his mother and or his faith, considering the events that set the game in motion, or possibly even counter-betrayal of Isaac killing his mother in self-defense as the final boss of the early stages. Judas may also be a form of Isaac's personality that indulges so-called evil urges, as Judas dabbles with demonic artifacts such as the Book of Belial. Next is question mark, aka Unknown. Appearing in the original Binding of Isaac, unlocked by defeating Mum's Heart 10 times, Unknown is a unique in that he cannot have red health and can only take soul hearts and black hearts. Any item that gives him heart containers will instead give him soul hearts. Unknown's common nickname by the Binding of Isaac community is the Blue Baby, referring to blue baby syndrome, in which the newborn skin appears blue, which can be caused if there was a congenital heart defect that causes a lack of oxygen, or if the umbilical cord wound up wrapped around the baby's neck at some point prior to birth. However, despite the nickname being unofficial, the game's code actually refers to the character as Blue Baby. For example, the image file character_006_Blue Baby. By definition, this adds some canonicity to the character's nickname. And in the game's lore, Blue Baby is the body of Isaac locked in his toy box, because the blue skin and X marks for the eyes are cartoonish symbolism for asphyxiation and death and or unconsciousness. This is why Blue Baby starts with the poop as an active item, for in the initial stages of death the bowel muscles loosen, making the body effectively soil itself. And then again, if you've ever watched South Park, you might know that already.
You guys know what? The last thing you do when you die is crap your pants. What? Yeah, when you die, your jowls release and crap comes flying out your ass. That is f***ing stupid, Cartman. Oh yeah? I bet you $5 that when you die you crap your pants, asshole. Ha! You owe me $5, Kyle.
Eve is part of the vanilla Binding of Isaac, unlocked by completing 2 floors without taking heart pickups. Eve begins with Whore of Babylon and Dead Bird, the former granting a stat boost when she has 1 red heart left, which is unique as all the other characters require only half a red heart left or none at all, having only soul or black hearts. Dead Bird is a familiar that attacks enemies after Eve takes damage, sort of like a revenge minion. The player can also unlock a razor blade for Eve, which allows her to harm herself to increase her damage for the current floor. In the Book of Genesis, Eve was the wife of Adam, made from his rib by God. Several of Eve's unlocks reference self-harm regarding the razor blade, curiosity regarding death, regarding Dead Bird and Crow's Heart, or aspects of modern-day gothic fashion, such as the black mascara and black lipstick. All of these combined may hint at the character of morbid curiosity. As seen in one of the game's multiple endings, Isaac actually keeps the dead body of his cat Guppy in his toy box. Also, an interesting mechanic in the game is that if if any character has half of a heart overall left of their health, so say half a red heart, half a soul heart, half a black heart, and no other hearts, they will leave a puddle of urine behind them whenever they enter a new room. But in the original game, Eve actually left a puddle of blood, hinting that she was an adult character and was instead having a period. The fact that this feature was not kept in the Rebirth version onward was either an oversight by developers or left out intentionally. However, the feature may have hinted that Eve was an actual adult and may regard Isaac's views towards his own mother, a dark, gloomy figure caught in a spiral of depression, hence the self-harm references, and she may have even been the cause of Guppy's death, since she took away everything Isaac had because it was so-called evil. She could have also killed his cat, in case it was like a witch's familiar or something, because Guppy is mostly black. And now Isaac keeps his cat in his toy box so that his mother cannot hurt the animal any further. Not to mention self-destructive tendencies and animal abuse are early signs of a serial killer in development. And for Isaac's mother, it may have started with a cat. And when harming animals was no longer sporting to her, she may have broken down even further into her instability and decided to take her victims to a new level, targeting people. Let's move on to Samson. I think the last character from the vanilla Binding of Isaacs, coming with the Wrath of the Lamb expansion. He's unlocked when the player completes 2 floors in a row without taking any damage. In vanilla, Samson's inherent ability was Bloody Lust, which increases his damage as he kills enemies, but in Rebirth that was changed so that he gains a damage boost by taking damage. And the vanilla version of Bloody Lust was reintroduced as the Lusty Blood unlock. In the Bible, Samson was the equivalent of Hercules, the largest comparisons being inhuman strength and the feat of strangling a lion to death with their bare hands. However, Hercules is a demigod, and Samson gained his strength from a Nazarite vow, specifically entitling him to immense strength so long as he never cut his hair. However, in the story of Samson, he was betrayed by a woman named Delilah, who seduced him and then cut his hair so that she could deliver him to his enemies. Samson's lock is an unlockable item, hinting that the Binding of Isaac version of Samson is not at his full strength yet. I'm not quite sure how Samson fits Isaac's personality, but it would be possible he represents Isaac's inner rage towards his mother's abuse. Not to mention, Isaac's mother shaved him bald and stripped him naked, a symbol of weakness and helplessness, just as Samson was after Delilah cut his hair. It took away his strength, and he was at the mercy of his enemies. They chained him up between 2 pillars, but Samson still had enough strength left in him to tear down the pillars he was chained to, and the building toppled down, crushing everybody inside, including Samson. And this plays into Samson's gameplay mechanics, because as he starts with Bloody Lust, he takes damage to gain a temporary damage boost, and if the player intentionally makes Sam lose too much health to get really high damage, then in the end you're only going to end up killing yourself, and you have to start over again. Moving on to Rebirth characters, we'll start with Azazel, unlocked after accepting 3 deals with the devil in one run. Azazel starts with Flight, a short-range brimstone laser breath, and a tarot card of the Fool. In the Bible, Azazel is referred to as a scapegoat cast into the world for atonement. In the Book of Enoch, he is referred to as a fallen angel that taught people how to make weapons, jewellery and cosmetic makeup, such as lipsticks and eyeliner. Because murder and vanity are both regarded as sins of wrath and pride, respectively. His name is also mentioned 3 times in the Bible, which may be why his in-game character begins with 3 black hearts. Azazel being referred to as the scapegoat may allude to how Isaac sees himself as sinful, and Azazel represents the darker side of Isaac, whom he can blame all of his transgressions on. To a greater extent, Azazel could even be a transcended version of Judas, being Isaac's impulse to commit sin. It may be that, as Azazel, Isaac has embraced his dark side and accepted himself as evil. This is further proved if you watch, I think it's ending 17, which you get by defeating Mega Satan, because it has Isaac transitioning between himself and Azazel. Next we have Lazarus, introduced in Rebirth, unlocked after having 4 soul hearts at once at any given time. Laz begins with a random pill and, if unlocked, anemic, which leaves a damaging trail of blood after taking damage. He also has the ability to, upon death, resurrect himself as Lazarus Risen, who has much higher stats and, if the ability has been unlocked, a version of anemic that stays active without the need to take damage. So he leaves a pool of blood behind him indefinitely. Lazarus' name is reference to Lazarus of Bethany, who was resurrected by Jesus Christ 4 days after his death, and this is why Lazarus starts with an extra life. Some of Lazarus' unlocks revolve around pills, namely the Plan C, which kills all enemies in the room, followed by the player character after 3 or 4 seconds. And this hints to suicidal tendencies, given that a tactic of many players is to kill Lazarus on the first floor in order to get him into a stronger risen form. And for a small helpless child such as Isaac, who is being tormented from every aspect of his life, suicide may be one of the only few ways out that he can see. Next is Eden, introduced in Rebirth, unlocked after defeating Mum's Heart for the first time. Eden starts with random stats and items, but requires an Eden token to play with. Eden tokens are unlocked after defeating Mum's Heart, It Lives, or Ultra Greed in any run. Named after the Garden of Eden, where God created all life on Earth in the book of Genesis. Notably, Eden has been confirmed by the developers to be androgynous, which is a term meaning asexual or gender neutral. So biologically, Eden's character is neither male nor female. Eden's unlockable items are based on their gambling playstyle. For most of the unlockable items offer random effects when used. Eden's asexual nature, white hair, and in the cutscene when they're unlocked, white glowing eyes, allude that they may be an angelic creature of some force, or Isaac being born again into a higher form. I personally believe that Eden may actually represent Isaac's guardian angel, who has had enough of Isaac being pushed around and is personally intervening to try and help Isaac through his dying nightmare. Hence the term divine intervention. Next we have the Lost, a notorious character introduced in Rebirth. Starts with no health and dies from any hit. Lost starts with Flight, Spectral Tears, allowing projectiles to pierce through obstacles, the D4, which rerolls all passive items, and Holy Mantle, which absorbs 1 hit of damage per room. The Lost's unlocks are often regarded as extremely powerful, such as the Body, Mind and Soul, D100, Zodiac, and Godhead. In Rebirth, the Lost was a secret character and could only be unlocked by dying with specific characters in certain ways in the following order. First, the character must be playing as Isaac, and be killed by a Mullaboom enemy in either the basement or cellar. Next, they must play as Magdalene and kill themselves with a bomb in the caves or catacombs. Keep in mind from earlier my personal theory that Magdalene may have been Isaac's sister who died in an accident. She may have accidentally blown herself up. Next, Judas must die to Mum in the depths or necropolis. Being killed by any of the minions she summons does not count. And then lastly, the player must be playing as Azazel and die to any Satan attack in Sheol. Again, being killed by the kamikaze leeches or the fallen boss prior to Satan does not count. However, because not only is it too hard to unlock the Lost that way, like I actually looked up how to unlock the Lost and I unlocked him the hard way, but in the Afterbirth version of the game, the first expansion, the Lost requirements were changed to make it easier. That requirement now being that Isaac specifically must be killed by the spikes in the sacrifice room while holding the missing poster trinket, which is one of his unlocks. However, this was actually how you got hints in the Rebirth version, because originally dying in a sacrifice room while holding missing poster would display puzzle pieces on the last will, which is the death screen. And if you collected enough of the puzzle pieces and put them together, then it would show the last wills of Isaac, Maggie, Judas, and Azazel dying in ways they were meant to in order to unlock the Lost. And this was actually discovered by data miners approximately 109 minutes, I think, after the game was released. Or maybe I'm thinking of something else, but yeah. The Lost requirements were found by data miners, and this actually pissed off Ed McMillan, who claimed that it was like eating a $1,000 steak in one bite. Like, you just got it over with. There was no mystery, no suspense, sort of. And another interesting thing is that the Lost starts with a single coin, which is a reference to Charon's Obol, a tradition from ancient Greece involving placing a coin in the mouth of a dead person prior to burial to pay Charon, ferryman of the river Styx, to carry the soul of the dead to the underworld. Notably, in the nightmare sequences between floors, one of the scenes that the player can see is the voice of God that's supposedly told Isaac's mother to sacrifice him is actually the Lost character himself, hiding up in the attic, whispering to her. Next is one of two characters unlocked in the Afterbirth expansion, Lilith. She is unlocked by beating Greed Mode with Azazel. Lilith's playstyle and unlockable items are based around familiars, as she starts with Incubus, which shoots projectiles for her because she is blindfolded, and she has Box of Friends, which duplicates old familiars. Her unlocks include Immaculate Conception and Cambion Conception, the latter of which she will start with when it's unlocked. Immaculate Conception refers to the virgin birth of Jesus, as it spawns angel familiars when Lilith collects hearts, while Cambion Conception, Cambion being a mythical creature being the offspring of humans and demons, spawns demon familiars as Lilith takes damage. Lilith is also the Hebrew name for a figure in Jewish mythology, thought to be an early class of female demon, where other sources say that Lilith was the first wife of Adam, created before Eve, but her body was made of mud rather than clay, and somehow that made her soul corrupted. And so Lilith refused to be subservient to Adam and left the Garden of Eden to join Satan's army of the damned, in which she became the primordial succubus demon. In some cases, Lilith is also said to have cursed all descendants of Adam and Eve, and she preys upon children out of sheer hatred of Adam. The relationship with Lilith and her incubus in the game may actually allude to Isaac's parents, for as seen in some of the game's cutscenes, Isaac's father is portrayed as smaller and skinnier than his mother, and the fact that the incubus does all the fighting for Lilith may mean that in life Isaac's father may have been doing all the work while his wife did nothing all day, and that may have been why he got angry and left, abandoning her and Isaac. Another aspect of Lilith is that since she starts with Cambion conception when it's unlocked, she spawns demon babies, and in that sense, if Lilith actually does resemble Isaac's mother in a way, then it may allude to the fact that Isaac sees himself as a sinful demon child. Adding on to that, Lilith's blindfold may represent the blind faith Isaac's mother has, which also blinds her to the pain she is putting her son through by listening to the apparent voice of God. And the character of Lilith has bright red hair, and in the Middle Ages red hair was a sign of being a witch, which may be how Isaac began seeing his mother when she began punishing him as commanded by the voice of God / possibly the Lost. Because, yeah, to him, she would have been like an evil witch, punishing him for no good reason. The second character unlocked in Afterbirth was Keeper, a secret character unlocked after 1,000 coins were donated to the greed machine. Health is based on coins rather than hearts, associatable with the sin of greed. He begins with triple shot wooden nickel when unlocked, which spawns coins. Store key, trinket that allows free entry into shops, must also be unlocked. And 2 coins worth of health, though this can be increased to a maximum of 6 with the Grease Gullet item. All health pickups turn into friendly flies that attack enemies, similar to the Lost starting with a single coin. The Keeper's coin health is a reference to Charon from Greek myth. Placing coins on the eyes of the dead was an alternative to placing a single coin in the mouth as payment to Charon to carry spirits of the dead to the underworld, because 2 coins on the eyes instead of 1 in the mouth is to bring the dead back across the river when they're needed. So the first coin is only to send them to hell, and the second one is to bring them back if they're needed. And so having 2 coins, the Keeper must have paid for his body to be brought back across the river Styx, and since he unlocks having an extra penny after beating the Hush fight, then he must have had the means to return to the underworld after his business was done. Many of the Keeper's unlocks actually revolve around money, and in the greed mode endings, the Keeper is hinted to be Isaac's dried out dead corpse. And this way may be why his character is obsessed with money. He's looking to pay the ferryman to take him to the underworld. It could be that in Isaac's never-ending nightmare, the many dried up corpses in secret rooms and shops are actually Isaac's previous attempts to escape his personal hell. Only he failed and wound up trapped, his body being left behind to taunt Isaac of his failures when he is next reincarnated to try and escape the labyrinth. Finally, the only character introduced in Afterbirth Plus, unlockable by defeating Mega Satan if you're playing on PS4, as he's available immediately on PC. He begins with Void, which destroys items and grants stat bonuses in return. Any active items are stored inside the Void, and using Void again will use them items all at once, indefinitely. Apollyon is the Greek name for Abaddon, a fallen angel known as the Destroyer or Lord of the Pit / Lord of the Abyss. Hence why it starts with Void. In the New Testament's Book of Revelations, Abaddon is written as the king of an army of locusts, hence why most of Apollyon's in-game unlockables are locust trinkets, based off the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. This is only a bit of a stretch, but the only way I can tie Apollyon to Isaac's character is that he may represent Isaac's guilt, believing himself to be the cause of his family falling apart for one reason or another, and in doing so, Isaac's father has left, and Isaac is now the man of the house, the lord of his own pit, filled with sadness, which slowly continues to spiral downward into a dark void. And I say tied to Isaac because in an official statement by Ed McMillan, every playable character in the game is Isaac in some form or another. So they would all represent parts of his personality, and that's what I'm speculating here. But how do we piece it all together? Now that all the theorizing is done with the characters, let's apply that into the actual gameplay of Standard Isaac Run. Let's take what we already know is true of the game's plot and embellish it with speculations I have come up with. Let us begin at the beginning of the end. Isaac is a young boy grieving the absence of his father, who has walked out after yet another fight with his wife. Bullied by his abusive mother, who believes the voices in her head to be the word of God, telling her that her son is tainted and unclean. He is tormented daily by other children in his neighbourhood, and after another particularly rough punishing by his mother, Isaac crawls inside his treasure chest, for it is the only safe place he has to hide from the misery in his life. However, the box suddenly locks tight, and Isaac suffocates inside the chest. As he slowly dies, he begins to hallucinate a dream-like world, when there is nothing wrong at all. Isaac lives happily at home with his mother on the house on top of the hill. He plays all day while she watches TV, but then Isaac's mother begins to hear voices in her head once more. They tell her that Isaac is corrupt and needs to be purified. She takes away all of Isaac's toys and clothes, shaves him bald, and even rips the drawings off of the wall. However, she then hears a voice that tells her to prove her love to God by murdering her own son, and she agrees. Isaac, watching through a crack in his bedroom door, is terrified, and looking for any way to escape, finds a trapdoor under his carpet and jumps down into a secret basement. Isaac flees through the basement and eventually the cellar, filled with worms, flies, and spiders, and he thinks he's gotten away safely until he suddenly hears his mother's voice call out to him. Terrified, Isaac accidentally knocks into something and sets the basement on fire. As the smoke and ash fill his lungs, Isaac finds a hole and enters an underground cave. Exploring the darkness, avoiding spikes and pitfalls along the way, he can still hear his mother's voice slowly growing closer. He opts to dive into an area of the cave sunken underwater, and he swims to safety, emerging inside a forgotten mausoleum in the dank depths. As he reaches a dead end in the catacombs, the ceiling suddenly collapses as Mum breaks through and tries to crush Isaac. And with nowhere to run to, he must fight for his life. It seems like the end until his mother's Bible suddenly comes flying down and smacks her in the back of the head, knocking her out. Divine intervention has thankfully saved Isaac, but then everything goes dark, and he finds himself inside her warm body. She will not stop unless Isaac tears the threat out at its beating heart, which he regrettably does. As the womb grows cold and begins to decay, Isaac desperately seeks for an exit, but alas, he cannot. Until he suddenly hears a voice call out to him again. It almost sounds like his mother, but it's too distorted to tell. Terrified, he begins to run, but as it turns out, he has been purposefully misled into a dead end. There is something down here. It wants revenge. An unborn fetus with Isaac's face. One would think it would have died soon after its mother, but no. It is still breathing, Its tiny heart is still beating. It lives. After Isaac destroys the creature, a hole opens up in the wall. The room inside is cold and blue. Isaac wanders curiously, but after entering a large room, he comes to realize that the spirit of the embryo has trapped him once again. And amidst his angered screams, Isaac can only make out a single word. Hush! When Isaac finally defeats this creature, it explodes in a burst of white light. The energies pouring from it split Isaac's soul in two. It is here that the story takes two branching paths. One half of Isaac is engulfed in white light, and he is met by an angelic figure, his guardian angel, Eden, who escorts Isaac through a cathedral, inhabited by many spirits who attack seemingly not in a hostile manner, but they seem to be testing his worth. If he can make it all the way to the end, he learns why Eden brought him here. Isaac must face himself. He's made it this far, he cannot give up. Meanwhile, the other half of Isaac's soul is engulfed in darkness and finds itself in the land of the dead, Sheol. It is met by Isaac's inner demon, who escorts him past all of the tortured souls to meet Satan. The devil says to Isaac, "I have a task for you, little one. But first I must know if you are powerful enough to even attempt it. Face me and prove your worth." With that, Satan attacks Isaac, and the child begins to fight back, using Azazel as a host to channel his unbridled rage and injure the devil. Meanwhile, Eden has brought Isaac to the chest. Fighting their way through the same nightmares from before, Isaac is forced to confront himself yet again, only in the form of his asphyxiated corpse, which has been locked away for quite some time now. Isaac cannot help but think of the Hush, for the blue baby is quite reminiscent. At the same time, under Satan's command, Azazel takes Isaac to a place in the abyss known only as the Dark Room. Fighting through the many demons lurking about, Isaac's task is to hunt down and sacrifice a lamb. Not just any lamb, one with extreme supernatural strength. Eventually, the sacrifice has been made, and Isaac's soul absorbs the supernatural strength from the lamb. Infused with unholy rage, Isaac turns on Azazel, kills him, and takes his body to use for his own purposes. Satan and Isaac smile gleefully. The sounds of a door creaking open can be heard in the distance. Eden emerges with the other half of Isaac's soul, now purified and forgiven of all sin. However, Isaac's dark half stands in the way. He transforms Azazel's body into a gargantuan, monstrous demon and engages in battle. This is embodied in the Mega Satan boss. Isaac's dark half wishes to gain the power to destroy the god that betrayed him. But first he must kill his way to the top, starting with Eden. Guardian Angel Eden and Isaac's deranged dark half fight for what feels like an eternity, but eventually the last of their powers give out. Either Eden manages to destroy the last of Isaac's sins, or Isaac's dark half succeeds in defeating the mighty angel. Either way, the energies of their powers clashing sends the victor further down to the absolute bottom of the void. However, the victory is short-lived, for Eden or Azazel is slowly dying as a result of their injuries. They pass on the last of their power to Isaac's soul, who begins to venture throughout the distorted reality. As he explores, reliving his adventure thus far, as time itself seems to stop, start, rewind and fast forward all at once, Isaac feels the familiar presence. Once again he can hear hushed screams. He enters the next room, and he sees the hideous blue monster from before, only its skin has turned white. Its eyes, hollow abysses with glowing yellow lights inside. Its whole body seems to be melting. The entity shapeshifts into all of the enemies that Isaac has fought along the way, threatening to destroy him. Isaac understands now. This entity is the living personification of his nightmare. It wishes to keep him in the endless cycle of death and rebirth forever. Isaac has had enough of being pushed around. Using all of the magical treasures he has collected on his journey, Isaac faces off against his own delirium, and he succeeds. The true ending depends on the path the player has chosen. If the player has supported Isaac's good side, helping him to come to terms with his death and defeating his inner demons, then Isaac's soul will finally be at peace, leave the chest and ascend to heaven. However, if you fueled Isaac's dark side, slaughtered Eden in cold blood, and destroyed your way through the void, Isaac's soul will merely sit there and rot in the darkness. As eons pass, millennia come and go, Isaac fades away to nothing but a dying memory of his former self. It is at this point the true Lord of the Void, the King of Locusts, comes forth. He offers Isaac the chance to go back in time and fix his mistake. Apollyon sends Isaac's lost soul back in time, back to before the dying dream turned into a nightmare. Isaac sees himself playing in his bedroom, while his mother watches Christian broadcasting on television. Isaac realizes what he has to do. He has to start the next cycle again, and hope that this time he makes the right decision. And that's it for my insane ramblings. Call it bullshit if you like, but all of this is just my opinion, formed from evidence collected on my own, some of which is from other people's opinions and sources. Let me know if you would like to add anything to my bullshit, any holes you think I should patch up, anything that I may have overlooked. Let me know how my storytelling skills are. Positive feedback and supportive tips here and there can really help me improve myself as a content creator. But please be nice in the comments, if not to me then at least to each other. It's entirely possible to tell somebody that made a mistake without acting like a total jackass. The human race isn't going to improve if we let closed-minded morons belittle people whose opinions are different to their own, and trust me, I once posted my opinion on somebody else's video, and quite a few different people jumped on telling me I was a piece of shit, simply because they did not agree with what I had to say. However, their comments got deleted afterwards, so either they grew a pair and realised they were being cunts, or the channel's owner said fuck no and reported them for abuse. So either way, I hope they learned their lesson. But anyway, thank you guys for listening in and putting up with my nonsense bullshit. I know I tend to ramble on for quite a long time for no reason, but I cannot help it sometimes. So until next time, this is NecroarcanistXIII signing off. Stay classy, YouTube.